We know who this Democratic ticket is now. What ultimately do you think was the deciding factor of why Harris chose Walz?
Well, Yvonne, it seems like this is really a coalition-building kind of ticket, right? Because you have in Kamala Harris, the current vice president, she's from California, prosecutor, kind of brings in that coastal vote there, certainly. But with a candidate like Tim Walz, you have somebody who's, this big Midwestern dad kind of charisma. You've got somebody that also has concentrated during his time in Congress and as governor on working families issues, labor issues, union types of issues. As governor, he's looked into things like child tax credits. He's also provided free school lunches, that kind of thing. Yeah. So you've got that level of kind of commitment there. And then also in Congress, he was focused much more on issues involving veterans, agriculture. So it does seem like what Kamala Harris is trying to do with this ticket is really appeal to more Midwestern voters, try to build that coalition and ultimately win over votes in those types of states.
Yeah, just how important is he, do you think, going to be in getting those swing state voters over the line?
Well, historically, the VP pick hasn't really had a tremendous effect on the ticket, but ultimately, you kind of want to do no wrong here, right? So anything that Kamala Harris can do to kind of build that kind of appeal there, maybe that ultimately helps, with her polling in some swing states. We'll have to see whether or not the VP pick here has any effect there. But when you're contrasting this with, the Republican contender Donald Trump, who in picking J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, kind of doubled down on his base more than built out any kind of, broader coalition building here, then you do have what seems to be a different strategy there in trying to really try to win over an appeal. Obviously, Kamala Harris, though, is running a very unusual and really kind of unprecedented campaign, trying to get things going the last 100 days. We'll have to see whether that actually has any big effect there.
We talked earlier about his China connections. Might that be a bit awkward, just given what we've seen? And they're talking about comments from just decades ago about when he was a teacher in China, too.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see, this candidate that actually has experience living in China. We really haven't seen this since George H.W. Bush, who was ambassador in Beijing in the 70s. In Tim Walz, he was a teacher in China, 1989, 1990. He celebrated his wedding anniversary on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square crackdown. Has met with the Dalai Lama. Maybe there is a bit of awkwardness or tension there, but ultimately it seems like, he largely kind of tracks with the Biden administration's positions on China anyway, this idea of taking a really hard line on issues involving the military, South China Sea, technology advancements, that kind of thing, while trying to find areas of cooperation, maybe in renewables, green energy, that other sorts of thing. We'll have to see what he actually presents as a candidate and what his comments look like now today on China.
All right, that was our Bloomberg News Desk editor, Jill Disis there. And of course, Yvonne, it's really that question, what are we hearing about this on social media within China as well? Because it has been something that's been stirring a little bit on the rounds of Weibo, people discussing, as we said, that experience that he has in mainland China. The hashtag, actually, that translates in English, Harris's running mate has taught in China before, which to me just kind of sounds like, okay, it's a bit of a fact, but yes.
It's too long for a hashtag,
it is still generating a lot of views, 10 million clicks so far. So people are definitely interested, it seems.
Yeah, obviously the China ties are interesting, right? What we've heard so far are some mixed reactions. So some are a bit skeptical. They're saying Walz can help improve U.S.-China relations. It does not affect his anti-China stance, though. And then also the candidate's time in China was very different. I mean, you're talking about, the 90s, right? 1989, 1990, when he was there. The atmosphere at that time was different. It may not have a positive influence on him.
Yeah, and I think as well, what we're hearing really from both sides of the spectrum, Democrat or Republican, is that tough on China stance that's likely to at least persist into the election. And even the story today, for instance, we've been confirming here is that the Biden administration is looking to further restrict US sales of Chinese vehicle software as soon as this month. So really there's a lot to play out on that front as well.
Yeah, some still keeping the faith, though, saying, I hope this is positive for US-China relations, just having someone with those ties to China as well.